Hello, I'm so happy to have you here in my studio. I am Deanna, the artist and healing arts educator behind Shady Tree Maker. My interdisciplinary arts practice is driven by wild play in deep connection with nature. I participate in ancient art making mediums such as paper making. I sew my own sketchbooks, as well as I actually make my own paints from stones that I find outside. I hand grind them and use them to create some of the paintings that you see behind me. So let's talk about the project that we will be doing together in this little video journey in tandem with the 3 articles that I wrote for Seamwork. So what we're going to be doing in this process is experimenting with my stone ground pigments that I usually use for paint making, but I want to see how they do in the dye bath. I'm being completely transparent in this process. I had no idea if this would even work when I started doing these videos, and spoiler alert, it does. But I really didn't know, and I hope that that also inspires you to be playful and to not be afraid of just going with the creative flow and getting excited about something and just trying it. So come along with me as I create a stone-inspired garment. I decided to start off with doing a few test pieces of fabric, as this was going to be a very experimental. So I scoured and mordanted a couple of small pieces to get them ready for my stone ground powders. Started grinding and getting all these powders ready. I wanted to be able to do a couple different colors and tests, so I got those all ready to go. So I started off with 9x9 pieces of linen, silk, and cotton to be able to experiment across fibers. And what I ended up doing was I got those all mordanted and scoured and ready to go, and then I added my ground pigmented powder from my stones into a bowl, and then I mixed it with some water to create a workable paste. I ended up adding probably about 2 parts water to 1 part powder. So this did create more of a soaking situation. And then I'm going to leave it for 5 days, and I'm going to stir it every single day. These are some directions that I heard about working with earth pigments like mud and clay that's pulverized into powder. So I feel like this is really similar. So we're going to give it a try and see what happens after 5 days. Then I washed them out and used some pH neutral soap to reveal the color. I'm really happy with how they came out. It looks beautiful. It's like a really muted color, but I really like it. I took the second stone ground pigment that I had made, and I made it into more of a thicker paste rather than a more watery sort of soak. And I left that out again for 5 days and sprayed it intermittently just to make sure that it didn't dry out. After 5 days, the second dye test is revealed, and it came out great. I definitely like that method better than the first experiment. So for this third and final stone dyeing experiment, what I actually did is I started with a base of exhausted avocado dye that I had already used, and then I went rogue and added the stone ground pigments into the dye bath. And this actually ended up being my favorite technique. Look at that color. Oh my gosh. I think it's gorgeous. Here's the plan. I'm just gonna wash it with some pH neutral soap, hang it to dry, and then we'll really be able to see what the final color is. I wanted something that felt almost like a blank canvas, where I could really collage and create a dynamic view of the experiments that I did for natural dyeing. So I ended up doing the Ariel dress. I collaged all of my stone experiments to create this dress. So I made it into some large rectangles and figured out the sizing, and then laid it over the pattern to determine where things would line up so that it would be flattering. It was a really interesting learning process to figure that out. Thank you all so much for coming along in this nature healing art journey with me, and I hope it inspires you to do natural dyeing and sewing if you're new to either. I am too, and you can still make something that makes you feel so good. Happy making, friends!